right off the bat, before we get started, I want to say I am an old guy. Okay, so my pick is not gonna be any new anime or anything like that. Maybe some of it might be kind of new, but a lot of it is like um early '90s to early 2000s. Um, Most of it early '90s. so and it took me back. Like making this list took me back to not having that much anime, and having to kind of look at most of it in Spanish. Like a lot of the stuff that I a lot of the stuff that I grew up watching was in Spanish, because the Spanish channels usually had all of the new anime, and the American audience wasn't really into at the beginning. They weren't really into cartoons that were a little bit too serious or that showed blood and violence. Um, I think the only action style cartoons that we had back in those days was Batman the animated series, Superman, the Superman Adventures. What else? I think that was it. There was probably more, but those were two of the main ones, and there was really not a lot of blood in those, like for example Dragon Ball Z or Saint Seiya, where you had literal holes in some of these aliens and even some of these humans, and you could see blood coming out or whatever. And that kind of stuff was allowed in Mexican television and in um, U.S. Mexican television. And so a lot of my experiences early on was Spanish, um, theme songs. And the other thing you got to understand too is that metal and just rock was a big thing back in the day, especially when it came to animation and to cartoons. And it wasn't just in Japan. It was actually started from what I could remember. It was started by the Transformers, right? Transformers is very famous for using metal music. Um, and then what else it was there? I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember whether the show used. Oh, Power Rangers. Yeah, the Power Rangers, which is I believe was in the '90s as well. They used the heck out of metal, which is kind of like, I guess, like power metal or something like that, because it pumps you up, and I guess that's the theme of today's, like looking at a lot of these, a lot of my favorites. You're gonna notice that a lot of it is there's a lot of guitar. There's a lot of electric guitar involved, in a lot of these songs. So let's get on with my number one, which is Virtual Fighter Wild Vision. Virtual Fighter Wild Vision. Now this is a TV show that's very underrated. Um, yeah, I bet you didn't know Virtual Fighter a a running series, an anime, and but it did, and I don't even know if it's canon or not, because from what I remember, Virtual Fighter didn't really have any storyline, didn't really have any lore. I think they're about to in their new the new game that's about to come out. I think they haven't named it yet, but it's Virtual Fighter 6. Um, and so far they're just calling it Virtual Fighter. So it could be like a remake or something like that. I'm not sure. Um, but what I'm trying to say is that they never had a lore, but this anime existed, and I remember loving the anime, the series, and a lot of people didn't. By the way, it's very underrated, underappreciated, and and I remember things that never happened in the because when you're a little kid, you have a big imagination, and me as a kid, I had a crazy imagination, and I remember watching Virtual Fighter and and thinking that I was learning actual martial arts. And I remember that. And by the way, this whole thing is made up because I went back and looked at it, and it's not even that never happened in the in the anime. Um, so what I was thinking was happening in these episodes was that the main character or Jackie or I think the main character is Akira. I think it was Akira or something like that. But the main character would do a move, right, and would knock somebody out, and then the TV show would pause. It would pause and it would be like, this is how this move was performed or whatever. This is how you do it, and this is what happens to the body when you do it, right? And and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And it would do that a lot throughout the series. I remember it happened with, there was this one guy who beat up a tiger or something like that, who killed the tiger, and then it shows you in slow motion. It's like an uppercut palm strike or something like that, and they're like, this is how he performed it, and this is what happens to your body when you get hit with it. And then there was this other one that literally teaches you how to break someone's back, and he's like, this is how they do it, right? And then this is what happens to your spine or whatever. And I was like, I can't believe that these shows. And I remember thinking that, I was like, and when I grew up, I remember that show, and I was like, I can't believe that show was teaching you how to, like, literally, like, break people's spines, and mobilize them, like, for life. And I kept telling people were like, yeah, I remember watching that show. I don't remember that. So I finally went back and looked at it, and no such thing ever happened, dude. No such thing ever happened. And I got scared. I was like, so pretty much half of this show was just made up by my brain. And then recently I went back and tried to search this song, and it's actually called Wild Vision. That's what it's called. And maybe there's, like, this is just a conspiracy of mine. Maybe there's like a thing that maybe only people with wild vision could see or something. I don't know. It's my only explanation, man, because none of that shit ever happened. And I remember each character, was presented by the show mentioning their martial arts and saying the attributes of the martial arts. Like, for example, Jackie was like Jeet Kune Do, and it would tell you, what are the attributes of the martial arts and what are they based on. And then they would perform a move, like the special move of the martial arts. And then they would go into, the rest of the show or whatever. But, I mean, none of that ever happened, dude. None of that ever happened, which is crazy to me. But who knows? Maybe there's another version out there, because I do know that, like I said, certain things were allowed in like Mexico and in other countries that weren't allowed in the U.S. because they were considered to be too violent or whatever. So it could be that. It could be that the U.S. didn't let people learn how to break people's spines or something. Right? And maybe because of that, when I go back and search it and look for it, is not there. But, moving on to my number 4. My number 4 is Naruto Shippuden. Opening 16. And And this is one that a lot of people probably have in their list, and which is why I wasn't going to include it in my list, because I thought it was too like overplayed, overused, and a little bit way too popular in my opinion. But you just can't help it. I think it's a very good song. I don't know what it says. I was gonna say a very good written song, but I really don't know. A lot of these are in Japanese because they're animes, and I enjoy the original, except for the exception is probably gonna be like one. Um, and I'm gonna explain why. But yeah, like this is the. I mean, there's nothing to say. Like first of all, let's just get it out of the way. Naruto probably has. It'll probably take a whole video in its own to, like, you can make a playlist just of off of pure Naruto, just Naruto opening theme songs and closing themes, like outros. They have probably the best music. Naruto has the best music in my opinion in anime history. Like, they have so many bangers, dude. Like, they have a lot of good opening themes, from all the way from Naruto, like the when he was young, like a shonen or whatever, and then when he grew up, with Shippuden. So yeah, I mean, like I said, you could go and look at a lot of that Naruto stuff. They have like the best music, in my personal opinion. It's probably the one, because some of these, they have good number ones, and then their number twos are not so good, or third season gets good again, and then their fourth not so good. But Naruto, it's kind of like, I mean, I remember 1, 2, and 3 for Naruto were all good. So but anyways, that is my number 4. So let's move on here to my number 3, which is none other than One Punch Man. And this one, again, as you could tell, there's a lot of electric guitar in a lot of my picks. But that, I feel like that comes from a 90s era of cartoons. Like I said before, in the 90s, pretty much every animation, every cartoon, from anime to just American cartoons, had some type of rock and roll or metal or punk or something like that. And the electric guitar was very prevalent, which is probably why I like this type of music today. Even though it's a little bit harder to find, I really like that sound of that like that kind of stuff. And a lot of these are gonna have that. So, in my number 3, of course, is One Punch, and I think it's called Hero. Hero, and by the way, I know you guys play Street Fighter, and the new character is called Alex, and his song, I think, is called Go Alex. All right, which is pretty much around the same. It's almost like kind of like a heroic theme song, and a lot of these have that kind of like that feel, right? That kind of like pushing you to be a hero or to go out and do stuff. A lot of these have that, except for maybe Naruto. Naruto is a little bit more chill, but definitely has like that kind of like iconic feel to the song. But One Punch Man is more like like that. So it's almost like pushing you forward. Like a lot of these songs you could add to a playlist for like running or jogging, or like inspirational themes or whatever. And it makes sense because a lot of these are like Like for example, Virtual Fighters. It's kind of like a guy who fights for good. In to the day, I kind of want to be like that, the main character where he just puts on a bandana and fights, kind of like a hero, right? And it's a virtual fighter, which means a fighter for good or a good fighter or something like that. But in a I guess in like a moral way or something, or at least that's what I think it means. And of course, Naruto, he's always talking about his ninja way, and he's always like fighting for his village or whatever. One Punch, kind of the same thing as well. It's about superheroes and stuff like that. Um, so there's kind of like, if you listen to a lot of these songs, they kind of have the same feel of inspiring people to kind of move forward and stuff. And I think maybe the electric guitar has a lot to do with that. Just my opinion. But in my number 2 is Inshallah, or is it Chala? Inshallah. I don't really. I don't really know the name, but it sounds like enchilada to me. Which is kind of fitting because uh, this is Dragon Ball Z song, and and I remember, like, this is one of the very first animes that I ever saw, and I ever witnessed and I ever like experienced, and I experienced it in Mexico, because we didn't, like I said, we didn't have it here in the U.S. But in Mexico, it was they were a little bit more, I guess you could say free or lenient on violence, and what kids could watch or whatever. And so I remember watching Dragon Ball Z, and it blew my mind. I just blew my mind. I was like, I've never seen a cartoon with so much blood and violence and drama. Like people are actually dying or whatever, screaming, like I was like, what the hell is happening, dude? Like, it just blew my mind, right? And I remember the opening theme song was like the best thing ever, right? And it had that electric, like this, that little, like, almost like I don't know what it sounds like, a screaming eagle or something. I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of these have it. A lot of these songs in my top 5 list have that sound, and it's just, bro, it's in my opinion, it's one of the best anime theme songs and just cartoon theme songs ever. Just my opinion. Um, and the most iconic opening scenes with the Dragon Ball and the Z and all of that, like, it doesn't get any better than that. And every time I hear it, and every time I see it, it takes me back, to when I first discovered that cartoons could do way more than just be funny or kind of corny. Which, by the way, Dragon Ball Z is kind of corny as well. But it's just different, man. It's just the possibilities within anime that I discovered in that time was just crazier, and then when I came back to the U.S., I couldn't find anything like Dragon Ball Z. And then I discovered Telemundo, and very early in the morning before going to school, you could watch, the whole run, all the way from the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, and then it would stop after, I think, he beat Freezer. And then it would kind of just like it would just be a stalemate, and it would be like, what was gonna happen next? And it would start all over from the beginning. I was like, man, fuck this. But I mean, you would still watch it. For some reason, I would still watch it. I would rewatch it again because it's just the emotions were just too I don't know. They just knew how to leave you on a cliffhanger and keep you wanting to watch more. Um, but yeah, that was Dragon Ball Z. That's my number two, Chala and Chala, or something like that. And also the other thing about it, just really quick, this song I actually learned in Spanish because, like I said, it's the song that I saw it in Mexico, so it was in Spanish when I heard it over there. But the original is also pretty good too. And a lot of people prefer the original. So, but me personally, since the first one that I ever heard was Spanish, I actually prefer the Spanish one. Um, but let's move on to my number one. But before we do that, we'll do some honorable mentions real quick. Pretty much, listen, pretty much all of the Naruto stuff, Naruto 1, 2, and 3 is on here. What else? Naruto Shippuden 2. Cowboy Bebop has a good one too.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Pokemon, of course.
I wanna be the very best.
Pokemon was gonna be on here, but I don't know. It's just I never really watched the show, so I think I watched only like one episode, and then I started realizing that I only liked the theme song, and I guess maybe that's a factor of it in a way, because all these other ones that are on my list, they're songs that I actually like, not only enjoyed, but also I watched the television shows as well, the series. Like for example, there's one called Death Note, and I don't know if it's the opening scene or the outro or the or the season 2 one, but it's a metal song, kind of like it reminded me of System of a Down or System of a Down. But yeah, but that's pretty much honorable mentions. But now into my number one, which is Saint Seiya. Pegasus Fantasy. I mean, it pretty much encapsulates everything that all the other ones had. This one has it, and it has it to the extreme, in my opinion. I think maybe One Punch could probably fight for it, but I had to keep the OGs in number one and number two. But Saint Seiya, I did watch the television series, and I used to watch it with my uncle. Back in Mexico. This was another one of those animes that I watched in Mexico. And I don't know, man. It's just, and I still go back and watch these, by the way. But that opening scene, man, I'll never forget it. They're running towards the camera, towards us, to the people that are watching. And there's like a Pegasus in the background, and he opens up his wings. And at first, there's no sound. And then the sound kicks in. And then you hear, right? Bro, like, come on, bro. Like, come on. Like, how do you not want to get up and punch somebody in the face, bro? Just when you hear that shit. Just, like, I mean, I feel like that's part of the reason why I was, like, so, like, hyped when I was a kid. It's because everything I was watching was electric guitar and like just drum sets, like like, and I never left that style of music, by the way, never. Like I kept liking that type of music all the way through now. Like I still look for music like that. I mean, One Punch Man is actually newer than all of these, and you could tell it's pretty much the same thing. You know, it's just a little bit newer. Um, and actually, when it comes to music, guys, I miss those old days of music where you could hear the static, you could hear, you know, like that little, you know, squeaky noise when they hit a key, when they hit a string, and it goes like that kind of stuff, and like all that stuff. I miss it because now guitar players, they don't really sound that natural. And I was looking for some of these songs to put in my playlist because I'm making up like a little jogging playlist, and there's new versions of each of these songs, and some of them say remastered or whatever. And what you hear is that they take away all of the mistakes, they take away all of the little, I guess you could say, static errors or whatever, and they make it like they purify it to make it sound perfect. And I don't know, bro. There's something about it that just sounds so computerized and so fake. I want to hear the old stuff. I want to hear it because I want to hear the static. I want to hear the, like I said, all those little sounds, where maybe they scraped the wrong string or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just feels more real to me. It feels like there's somebody actually playing the guitar. I don't know. I just miss it, and that's why I still appreciate, you know, musicians that still play their instruments and they can play it live. But anyways, that's gonna get into another another subject. But yeah, all of these, by the way, are good animes and some of them are actually underrated, like Virtual Fighters. Um, but I mean, actually, I went back and looked at it, and it wasn't even that good either. So I don't know. It's in the middle, but the theme song makes it good. Naruto, of course, everybody knows Naruto. One Punch Man is one of the most popular animes out there, in my opinion. Dragon Ball Z started it all, from what I believe. And Saint Seiya, you know, it's one of these that is more popular in Latin America and in Mexico than anywhere else. Um, but it's definitely popular, you know, and I think, as far as theme songs, I don't think it gets any better than this one, man. This is the number one in my opinion. And I recommend you to go. There's like I said, there's different versions to all of these, but I recommend you guys go watch listen to the original. This one, it gets you pumped, dude, and it's gonna remind you of Transformers and Power Rangers and stuff like that, you know. But anyways, guys, it's gonna be it for today. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will get you guys later.